Today's podcast is brought to you by Visa. With the capacity to process over 65,000 transaction messages every second, Visa has been bringing innovations to the way we pay for over 60 years. Imagine a world where, instead of just tapping to pay with Visa, you had to wait for everyone in front of you to cut a check. Everywhere you went. Imagine how much fun it'd be trying to track down your cousin in Milwaukee for league dues. That's why Visa's vision is to be the best way to pay and be paid everywhere, so you won't have to. Whatever your goals are, Visa makes paying fast and easy. The only thing left to figure out is, where would you like to be? Visa, everywhere you want to be.
Everyone, good morning and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is Nick Wright. Danny Cannell is joining us on a cold Monday morning in New York.
Real quick, if I may, because we have a ton of football to get to. I like Danny Cannell in this regard, well, a lot of regards, but this one in particular. You were doing the turtleneck thing before anybody was.
That's right.
And now everyone's on it, and so you zig when everyone else is
Exactly. Got to mix it up.
What's
a little
the next
vest.
thing? The vest.
Sprucing it up a little bit.
two-tone vest situation.
I like it's a little bit of a banker look, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, well, it fits your persona.
Absolutely. Rich. Great day of football yesterday. 5 teams clinching playoff spots. We're going to get to all of that, but we start in Dallas, where the Cowboys were home hosting the surging LA Rams. Dallas needed the win, not for their playoff hopes, for their sanity after dropping 3 in a row. Yesterday, they got it, beating the Rams 44-21. Dak threw for 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. And we finally saw Ezekiel Elliott like we've come to know and love him, 160 yards, 2 scores. Cowboys picking up their first win over a team with a winning record this season. How about that? Here's quarterback Dak Prescott after yesterday's win.
We know the team we have, we know the talent we have, we know the men and the character we have on this team. And it was about just going out there and putting a good game together on both sides of the ball and complimenting each other. But yeah, when you have the confidence, or when you have the team that we have and the skill, the confidence, you never have a down day. It's just about learning and moving forward no matter what happens.
All right, Nick, you wanted them to put together a good game over a good team yesterday. For the most part, they did it. Did Sunday change your opinion on the Dallas Cowboys?
No, for me, it validated it, that this was the team you could have been seeing throughout the season. This style of play, a dominating run game, a defense that not only is impressive statistically, but eye test and making the critical plays in the critical moments, the linebackers running all over the field, making plays where that might have been their biggest strength on defense going into the year, when Sean Lee, who's the star of the game, goes into the year as your 3rd best linebacker because of the young guys you've drafted. This is who we could have been seeing all year long, Danny, from the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think anyone, even the most pessimistic Cowboys fan or analyst out there going into the year, thought it was possible they would go winless against winning teams. Now, once you lose your first 5, I thought they could lose to the Rams, but even in victory to the Rams, I don't think you are going to be able to duplicate something it took you 14 games, to figure out how to do initially. So I felt like we knew the Cowboys at their best, running Zeke, Pollard is a change of pace, Dak taking shots, could be an excellent football team. It's a shame for them it took them this long to put it all together, but no, it doesn't change my opinion that now they're going to be able to do this 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row.
The last time we were here, we were asking the question, is this a good football team? And talent-wise, it's clearly there. And you saw that talent yesterday on full display. Now, then the question becomes, well, how good are they and what can they do? And that's where I don't think anybody's opinion has changed. I would say, when you say it took them 14 weeks to figure it out, if it's truly figured out, and that's very much in doubt.
I agree with you.
Then if you're peaking at the right time, entering the playoffs, that's where I think it gets scary. And that's where I think, a team that could have to go into Dallas to have to win a playoff game, one of those teams, the Seahawks, 49, one of those teams that doesn't win the NFC West, all of a sudden that becomes a place you don't want to go. But this, to Jerry Jones' comment, this is exactly what the doctor ordered. He's right. 44 points, the most points they've had in 5 years.
Right.
28 points in the first half. It's their highest scoring half in 4 years. It was a perfect performance. My only question was, of course, where has this been? And you hear about this unbelievable pregame speech that Jason Garrett gave, and you hear about this highlight video that he put together to boost his team's confidence. well, what took so long? Like, where were these speeches and these motivational tactics after 2 losses in a row, or or after at the beginning of the season? That's what I'm kind of confused by. And is this what we're going to get moving forward?
Or maybe it was just that they use Ezekiel Elliott for what he's supposed to be used for. And we keep talking about, did they figure it out? What is it? Is it the fact that they ran more than they passed yesterday, that they used their biggest weapon, Zeke, more than the other weapon they wanted to show off all year in Dak?
It was a dominating rushing attack. Zeke early, Tony Pollard late. They combined for over 250 yards. And while nobody thought they were going to be 250 yards a game rushing, that's of course what their identity should have been. Even Dak having his best season as a pro, we know where he is even as he's rising in the quarterback hierarchy. Zeke, they prioritized this offseason. They paid this offseason, and then through far too often this year, they were treating him as a luxury item. Far too often this year, he'd have 12 carries in the first half and then 4 or 5 the rest of the football game. And so yes, it's easy to run when A, the Rams' run defense was showing no resistance, and B, you're leading almost the entire game, so you don't want to get away from it. But there were games this year they got away from it when they didn't need to. It wasn't always the Packers up 31-3. There were plenty of opportunities they could have fed Zeke and tried to get Tony Pollard touches as well. They chose not to. To me, that put more of a strain on their defense, and the last few weeks prior to this one, it put more of a strain on Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott is having his best year as a pro to date. He's had really a breakout season, and what he needed it with his contract up for grabs and him trying to get a new deal. But this stat line, 15 of 23 for 212, 2 touchdowns.
That's perfect.
That's what you want. That should be your identity.
Exactly.
And I wonder where they got away from that and when, because yes, it's a pass-happy league. And yes, you want a quarterback who can put you on his shoulders and can carry you down the field. But this Cowboys team is built around the run. It's built around Ezekiel Elliott, and it's built around Dak Prescott. And I hate when the term game manager is used as something negative, because Peyton Manning was the best game manager the game has ever seen. And that's not an insult to him. But you need Dak Prescott to be a game manager who can go out, can manage the game, not turn it over, put you in the right plays at the right time according to what the defense has given you. And that's your recipe to be a playoff, a deep playoff team, not just squeaking, barely getting in backdoor and then getting bounced after one game.
And I agree with that entirely. And where Dak's at his best, you get the run game going and then those deep shots open up, and he's gotten much better at those this year than he was last year. But as far as a playoff run, I just still view that as an impossibility. Listen, I'm not even certain they'll beat Philly next week. Maybe they beat Philly and win the division. They still then would have San Francisco or Seattle coming to their building ready to annihilate them. The Cowboys played well yesterday, and they deserve credit for that. But I said Friday if they won 45-0, it wouldn't change my opinion. They tried to win 45-0. They were up to 41-7 or something close to that at some point. But despite all that, 14 games have been played this season. They have a better record in the NFC than Giants, Washington, Lions, Cardinals, Panthers, Falcons. That's it. They have the same record right now as the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Chicago Bears. One great game does not a great team make. It does show you, and I think this will be some of the commentary, what could have been for the Dallas Cowboys, which to me, Danny, is a further indictment on the coaching job that's been done so far this year.
All right, we touched on Dak. Time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. Dak Prescott kept the high-powered and top-ranked Cowboys offense rolling yesterday. We mentioned it, 212 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Nick, put a grade on Dak's performance.
I'll be quick, Danny. I think you nailed it. I think he gets an A. He did exactly what this game called for him to do. Couple deep shots, the one wide-open play to Tavon Austin. Didn't turn the ball over as the Cowboys led almost the entirety of this football game.
I think I'm totally in an A as well. The only reason people might look at it and say, well, how is that an A? It doesn't have 300 yards. This is not what they want to be. They want to be this. This Dak Prescott is what the Cowboys have the best chance of winning and going further in the playoffs.
All right, moving on now. There's a lot of drama surrounding the New England Patriots this week. Shortly before kickoff yesterday, Fox's Jay Glazer revealed this exclusive footage that he obtained of the Patriots filming the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, in the video, a security guard confronts the Patriots videographer. The videographer then offers to delete the tape, which included shots of the Bengals sideline. Important to note, the NFL prohibits filming this part of the field. Nick, what was your reaction to the latest developments here?
Well, you now see why Cincinnati is so upset. Why Cincinnati wanted to make sure this story got out into the public by, in my opinion, my best guesstimate is telling a local reporter, ask us about this. So it was in open forum at the press conference. Why Cincinnati has been adamant in going to the league and discussing it, and why my guess is Cincinnati wanted to make sure this showed up in the best NFL reporters' hands on the best NFL pregame show with the most people watching, because they think they have them dead to rights, and I do too.
They just might.
That video, it would have been against the rules if it was a wide shot of the entire field the whole time. But that at least has some deniability. This is coach, substitution, back to coach, not cutting to the scout who you're supposed to be on the profile of, so you can do the voiceover, this is what he's, no. It's just that. And there is another element of this that I just want to get to quickly, Danny, which is we now know who the videographer is, the person's voice. The Patriots in their initial statement wrote, "We understand and acknowledge that our video crew, which included independent contractors who shot the video, seemingly trying to distance themselves from it." Well, the voice you hear in that and the person who then released the statement is the suspended Kraft Sports and Entertainment employee, David Mondillo. Mondillo writes he's been with the organization for 18 years. Now, I wasn't able to find 18 years of history there, but I was able to find that I know that in 2012, he did a video on team cheerleaders. I know he was the director for Bill Belichick's weekly television show in 2016. Richard Deitch reported that. And this is someone who has been working with the organization in a hands-on capacity for a very long time. And to me, that's someone who would know about the Patriots' history and would certainly know about the rules in regards to something like this. So I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know how high up the organization it goes, but the idea that Sully from Southie at his part-time job just, you know what I mean, didn't know what he was doing, that got blown up. And the idea that the video would help exonerate the Patriots, to me, the exact opposite happened yesterday.
They are so busted. I mean, they really are. And the best line of the video is the Cincinnati guy who says, well, I don't see an advanced scout in this video.
Yep.
It is clearly, the video is framed in on the sidelines, on the coaches, on the signals, on the substitutions that are taking place. And it might not seem like a whole lot, but we're talking about a game where how many games do we see come down to one or two plays that are the difference? And anything you can glean. And here's the crazy thing, because I hear, you hear the Patriots fan base say, well, it's Cincinnati, or the people that are trying to excuse this saying, well, why would they need it on Cincinnati? They may not use it this year. I guarantee they didn't use anything, or they wouldn't have used anything yesterday, but they compile files of every team.
How
and
do you
it might come into play down the road. So Seth Wickersham wrote a piece. He did a deep dive piece, and it was all about Spygate. And this was from 2015. And he would talk about it. So from the article, it says, sources with knowledge of the system say an advanced scout, remember that term? That's what we're talking about this one, would attend the games of upcoming Patriots opponents and assemble a spreadsheet of all the signals and corresponding plays. It would go on. Files were created, organized by opponent and by coach. Key to note, Zach Taylor, new coach. So their file is probably outdated. They don't have any information on the Bengals. The crazy thing about this article, again, written 2015, during games, Walsh later told investigators the Patriots videographers were told to look like media members, to tape over their team logos or turn their sweatshirt inside out, to wear credentials that said Patriots TV or Kraft Productions.
And if they were caught, what are they supposed to say?
The videographers were also, this is from the article, written in 2015, they were provided with excuses for what to tell NFL security if asked what they were doing. Tell them you're filming the quarterbacks or the kickers, Jenna, or footage for a team show.
Yeah.
And what is this for? What is their excuse?
For a team
Do
show.
your job, team show, produced by Kraft Productions.
Look,
like this, you can't even make this up. They're so busted.
Two things stuck out to me. One, twice he offered to delete the footage.
Yes.
We'll delete it. Don't worry about it. Well, if you have nothing to hide, or if it was a mistake, take it from us. Take it. No, I'll delete it. I don't have backup, nothing. And number two, if you're a videographer who has been hired to do something like this, there's really only one rule when you're doing this. The NFL prohibits teams from filming opponents' sidelines during games. That's exactly what we saw, and he denied knowing this rule. That to me is
it's not
incredible.
to me that it's not plausible because of your first point, which is I think it's a key one and I think it's an important one. If I work for Robert Kraft and I have been sent somewhere to do my job, Bengals security don't mean a damn to me. You don't like what I recorded? Okay,
right.
Call my boss. Here's what I'm not doing. Going back to Robert Kraft saying I didn't get, or not act like you report to Robert Kraft directly. Going back to my bosses at Kraft Productions, I didn't get the video. Why not? Some yellow vest guy told me I had to erase it, so I listened to him. The only way you say, I'll erase my work, the only way you immediately say, my bad, my bad, my bad, it doesn't go anywhere, I don't even have a computer, is if you know you're not supposed to be doing that. If you're not trespassing and someone comes and says, get out of here, you say, you get out of here, I'm fine. If you are, you say, my bad, I'll leave. That's what he did. And I think it is a key point. And also Mike Florio reported last night after David Mondillo's statement came out, the Patriots did not release that statement, nor did they ask him to make that statement. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily they didn't want him to. But when their initial statement involved vague descriptions, including independent contractors, and now, 12 hours after this guy's statement comes out, I can tell you that he was with the Patriots in 2012. He says they were there. He's been there 18 years. I understand why the Patriots wouldn't want his name attached to it, because it's hard to say he would appear to be one of your most senior video people, one of your most senior production people, doesn't know the basic rules and regulations when he's out on assignment.
So the league has obviously seen this. This is what Goodell's office has. They mentioned yesterday, or the report came out this week, they're going to take their time in looking into this. If we seem to know what's happening here, what do you think the league is sort of going back and forth on?
Or what the punishment could be?
Well, that's probably the biggest thing. And there is this rift between the Patriots and Roger Goodell and the NFL because of their history. And I'm not saying it's the Patriots' fault, like it's their fault, but their fans will like to say, hey, there's a target on our back. They're out to get us. Well, yes, they're out to get you because you've been busted countless times now. And this is just the latest. We all have children, right? And we're all pretty good parents, but our children mess up sometimes. And this, like the conversation that you hear playing out here is like when I catch one of my daughters doing something wrong and they don't want to admit it right at first. And all of a sudden they start making excuses and you can hear it. You can just hear it in their voice when they're making these excuses. And then all of a sudden the story gets convoluted, or there's a detail that's left out, or there's, a discrepancy between the details that are there. That's exactly what's playing out. But the punishment is going to be very interesting to see what happens, because the NFL doesn't want, a Deflategate, long, drawn-out, year-long, type of investigation. They want to handle this quickly, and I'm sure the Patriots do too. They want this to go away, but the NFL has to look at every single detail. Absolutely, it'll help.
And lastly, and I think it was Michael Strahan who made the point right after this video debuted on Fox yesterday. It was certainly one of the guys up there. I think it was Strahan, which is the focus is going to be, Did Belichick order the code red? Was it that somewhat misses the point? Yes, that is important to know. If Belichick texts the guy, make sure you get the sideline, then of course. But even if he didn't, one of our friend Chris Canty's favorite catchphrases from Bill Parcells, who was Belichick's mentor at one point in time, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. You are either running an organization that has a ethos of every advantage we can get, grab it, even if our wrist has been slapped before, and even if it's been more than a wrist slapping. A first-round pick and $500,000. Or an organization that says, here are the rules, follow them. And to me, whether Belichick knew this was going on or not, there is someone, it would appear to me, David Mondillo, the person whose voice you hear in that video, there is someone he thought, when I come back to work with this, I'm going to get an attaboy. I'm going to show whether he was told to get it or just thought, best case scenario was for them is he just thought it would be received well. That is the culture of the Patriots organization. It is undeniable, and it's been undeniable for better part of 15 years. That's what they've got to reckon with. How the league punishes that, I don't know.
Are right, the Philadelphia Eagles were in Washington for a divisional matchup. Let's jump ahead to the fourth quarter. Game tied at 24. Carson Wentz fumbles, leading to a Washington field goal. But Wentz would respond on the next drive, leading Philly right down, capped off with a touchdown to Greg Ward Jr. To who? Yeah, Greg Ward Jr. First career touchdown for him. Eagles win it 37-27. For Carson Wentz, he finished with 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. Here he is after the game.
Team's resilient, and team's resilient. We realize, our backs are against the wall just like last week, and it's do or die right now, and make or break. And guys stepped up and kept making plays, and guys, through the good, the bad, the ugly, guys just kept believing.
6 times,
You
6
love that
cliches
presser,
in
didn't you?
one sentence.
That's what you're supposed to do as a franchise
then
quarterback.
nobody's better
Don't give him any
Carson
controversy.
Wentz,
Stay out of
clearly.
trouble.
Nick, let's start with you on this one. You think yesterday changed your opinion at all on the Philadelphia Eagles?
No, I still think they can win the division, and obviously they can. They win at home next week in Dallas. They will. They've still been wildly disappointing this season, but that was a huge moment for Carson Wentz, and that's what I want to focus on. Wentz, now, the last few weeks, the team has not played well, and you could argue he hasn't played great overall, certainly in the Giants game, and then in this game once again with another fumble, an issue that he's had throughout the season. But much like the Giants game, at the very end, he orchestrated a drive down the field, tie the game against the Giants, and then to win the game in overtime. In this football game, he had a fourth quarter drive to seemingly you thought to take back control of the game, and then one to win it. 11 plays, 75 yards for the win, culminating there, given all the noise surrounding him. And I would say the importance for him for his career, that he gets some playoff experience this year, even if it's really bad playoff experience, just to actually get the feeling of that week to better position them for next season. This was an important win. And for a guy who went into the week saying it's not all on me, that it has to be a team effort rather than me just put the team on my back, that Eagles defense didn't play great yesterday. He did kind of have to put the team on his back late, and he was able to do it. So I think for Carson, it's a very important moment.
It was a massively important, and as was down 17-3 against the Giants, who were awful, and bringing them back there. The 2017 season where he was MVP, Carson Wentz, before he got hurt, and of course before Nick Foles came in, that seems like it was a decade ago, right? And I'm sure to a lot of Eagles fans, they're waiting to say, where's that Carson Wentz, right? And you're wondering, hey, what impact the ACL injury could have had on him. He needs more and more moments like this where he is starting to resemble more and more the quarterback that he was in 2017, and that is a great sign for Eagles fans. I think he's very, it's funny because we worry about Lamar Jackson getting hurt. The way he plays the game, Carson Wentz does, I'm worried about him getting hurt. And he has a history of being hurt. I still think he tries to play a little bit too much of the hero ball. Like every single play, I can make something of it. And the quicker he learns, throw it away, take a sack, the better off he will be. And that's a process. But as far as getting back to that form, these last 2 weeks have been a massive step in the right direction for Carson Wentz.
Big win for the Eagles and a good time for Wentz to be playing well. Sets up a great matchup next week against the Dallas Cowboys.
And Jenna, before we move on, a moment of silence if you had Washington +6. My God! My God!
Yeah, that hurt.
Thoughts and prayers with you folks. That was a tough one.
I was nervous that I missed out on something huge.
My God.
On to the Patriots now, who are in Cincinnati looking to get their offense back on track, or just on track, really. 34-13, the final behind 2 touchdown passes from Tom Brady. Patriots get the win. Their defense was back to wreaking havoc, forcing 5 turnovers, including a pick 6 by Stephon Gilmore. Pats clinch a playoff berth for an NFL record 11th straight season. But Nick, from what you saw yesterday, how far can this team really legitimately go in the playoffs?
If they are fortunate enough to get a bye, which if they lose next week to Buffalo, they won't, and the way they're playing right now, that is absolutely in play. They lose to Buffalo. They could win. If they don't get a bye, they could beat Pittsburgh in round 1 or the Titans in round 1, sure, and then promptly get beaten by either Baltimore or Kansas City, whomever they play in round 2. That is who and if they do get a bye, they'll lose in round 2 to Kansas City. This was 10-10 when the Patriots are punting with 1:40 left in the first half. And the Bengals do what bad teams do. They have a chance to go into the half feeling good about themselves, so let's muff the punt. Now we go into the half trailing. The Patriots had one drive that was at least 50 yards yesterday. And once again, by the way, credit to Josh McDaniels or whoever's coming up with that opening script for them.
Yep.
Because against Kansas City, opening script touchdown. The previous game against Houston, opening script, opening drive, they drove 80 yards. They settled for a chip shot field goal. This week, opening drive, touchdown. And that was the only extended drive of the. It's 10-10 in their punting. Here's how they score their next 3 times. Muffed punt, field goal, interception, short field, touchdown, pick 6, touchdown, and onside kick, short field, touchdown. You know, Tom Brady was bad again, erratic again, and the offense once again looks like a major weakness headed into the postseason.
I'm with you. I think they have one playoff win and then they're going to get bounced because teams that make deep playoff runs are balanced. You have to be solid on both sides of the ball, or you have to be all-time great on one side of the ball. You think back to the Ravens winning with their all-time great, and you have a pedestrian quarterback play. I think the Broncos defense was all-time great with Von Miller and company when Peyton Manning was not that great. This offense has issues, and I know a lot of the conversation is going to surround, well, is it Brady regressing? Is it because he's getting older? I think that has zero to do with it. I think it is the weapons that he is working with. The offensive line has struggled, and sure, he's not as mobile, but show me a time in his career when he was running around making plays. Never. He's not done that. And here's the problem I have. When you look at the box score and you see the leading wide receiver is a running back in James White, and they're trying to create offense different ways. Last week it was trick plays, a flea flicker. That was how they generated offense. They don't have many options as far as skilled players.
But a lot of that's the quarterback. Like you can't. The idea that this is just the pieces around Brady have fallen apart. Man, he is missing guys. He is skipping passes. Yesterday, he throws the ball 29 times for 128 yards, and 23 of those, his longest pass of the day, was a dump off to James White, and James White navigated down the field for a 23-yard touchdown.
But you know who had less weapons than Tom Brady yesterday? Carson Wentz. Had no weapons yesterday.
But now he is mobile.
Protection.
But he's more mobile. He can run around and make plays. But this team.
I mean, whose fault is that? Like, look at some of these, though. Some of these are, guy's wide open.
He is. For Tom Brady, that's a
touchdown.
Absolutely is.
Now, this one, again, that's a drop, but that's also low behind him instead of being a touchdown. Watch these. I mean, who's that to? That's not the receiver's fault. Who's that to? That's not the receiver's fault.
Now these guys. Now this one's open. He's got to put a little bit more air under that so that he can catch that.
On.
Some of these, there's not very much separation. This bounce pass, no excuse for that when that's on Brady. When you do see, though, this offense has issues. Yes, Tom Brady is a part of them, but I think we focus too much on him as opposed to the pressure. And if you want to make any quarterback in the history of the game pedestrian, you get pressure on them. And you remember when Sam Darnold said, "I'm feeling ghosts"? That's what I think is happening because their offensive line has struggled. I think some of those, Tom Brady might be feeling pressure that's not really there because he's not getting consistent protection, which he has got.
And because I do think he's being extra cautious during the regular season of not taking punishment because he's 42 years old, because he knows he has to be available for the postseason. And I defend him on that. I think that's smart. That's like an in-game load management, to use a loaded term at the moment. And you're saying maybe he's getting a little too much blame. Man, I watched the New England Patriots win a Super Bowl because Malcolm Butler made maybe the greatest defensive play in a big spot in the history of the league, and that was part of why Tom Brady's the GOAT. I watched them last year win a Super Bowl where the defense held the opposition to 3 points. That offense scored 1 touchdown, and it added to Brady's greatness. We can't do it to where when good things happen to the Patriots, Brady can ride off it even if he wasn't the leading factor. And now, when you have 128 yards passing, 37 of those yards total to wide receivers against the Bengals. People can say, "Oh, you saw the score. Look at the score." They turned them over 5 times. Of course, you win that football game. This offense is a huge problem for them, Danny, and it's not getting fixed in the final 2 weeks.
Are you ready for what's ahead? You can't always predict the future, but you can game plan for it. Generations of families and businesses have harnessed the power of Pacific to help them reach their unique goals. Whether you need to save money to meet your needs, ensure your family is protected, or make sure you don't run out of money, Pacific Life has a variety of financial solutions that can help. Pacific Life counts more than half of the 100 largest U.S. companies as its clients and has been named one of the 2019 world's most ethical companies by the Ethisphere Institute. Protecting what matters most to people for 150 years and counting, that's the power of Pacific. Ask a financial professional about how Pacific Life can help you game plan for your future, or visit www.pacificlife.com. Back here, first things first, now joined by Super Bowl champ Chris King.
What up, man?
Good morning, Chris.
Well, good morning, Jenna. How you doing?
Good, Chris. Great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Nice to see you and be seen. All right, let's talk.
Jenna, why do you have to always make this so
You
awkward?
came at me so hard.
I don't
nailed
understand
it.
Not with anybody else, just with me.
Let's just talk about the football game. Canny, there's nothing you can do there.
I love you, Chris. Let's talk about a team you were very high on before the season started, the Green Bay Packers. So yesterday they beat the Bears 21-13 to clinch a postseason berth. Aaron Rodgers had an okay day by his standards. The rest of the Packers also just okay, not that much better, but it was good enough to punch their ticket to the postseason. After the game, Rodgers had some interesting comments. Take a listen to this.
I don't know that we have the full respect of the entire league at this point, based on some of our performances, where we got beat by a couple scores and kind of the reaction, I would assume, to those situations. But we're 7-1 at home. We have an inside track at the 2 seed. Obviously, we have an opportunity to wrap up the division next week, which guarantees a home game and probably in the 3rd seed at worst. I like our chances. I like our football team.
Nick, you also had the Packers coming out of the NFC, I think, before we started this season. What do you think of what Aaron Rodgers had to say? We don't have the full respect of the league, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think that's a nobody believes in us comment from him. I think that's him reacting either to the fact that they were only 4-point favorites at home against Chicago, which I said last week was shocking to me, or just reacting to the fact that, and I think he's right, very often we judge the Packers by how great does Aaron Rodgers look. And Aaron Rodgers and that passing offense have not looked great. If you'd have told me they were going to be 10-3 at this point going in, or 11-3, pardon me, at this point, I would have said, okay, good, my Super Bowl pick's looking good, Candy's Super Bowl pick, but I would have thought it's because Aaron Rodgers is a top 3 MVP candidate. He has not been. And yesterday's game was another game similar to the game last week, I think it was against Washington, where Green Bay gets out to a lead, lets the other team kind of hang around. It's like, wait, all of it, they could drive and tie the game here, but they leave with a win. They very similar to week 1 against Chicago, by the way. Not a pretty game. They made one big play, but they left with a win. And so I agree with Aaron that right now they're maybe a little undervalued, but I also think if they're going to prove you and I correct, Aaron Rodgers has to play better than he's playing right now. Right now, he's not making the critical mistake. For them to beat the best teams in the league, he's got to be the guy that I still believe he can be.
Well, the reason we were so bullish on them at the start of the season was because of how their defense was playing.
Yep.
We saw it in that Bears game that, you had Zadarius Smith, you had Preston Smith. It looked like that defense was going to be able to create some plays and take some pressure off of Aaron Rodgers and give that offense time to figure out that new scheme under Matt LaFleur. Now, to the defense's credit, they were able to get some takeaways yesterday. I think that always helps. But when you have a 21-3 lead in your place against a team that clearly, to me, is inferior competition, you have to find a way to bury them. And I don't feel like they did that yesterday. I mean, if Jesper Horsted decides he's going to lateral it to Allen Robinson, we could be talking about a game that goes into overtime. But all in all, I think this Aaron Rodgers and this Packers offense is doing just enough to be able to win games. But at some point, they're going to have to click. They're going to have to figure it out because the way that they're playing, they're not playing good enough to be able to keep up with the other double-digit win teams in the NFC. There are 5 double-digit win teams in the NFC, so there's a lot of competition. Any one of those teams can beat another on any given Sunday, and so we're looking to see things that can separate you from the pack. We all know that difference has to be Aaron Rodgers, and it's going to be up to Matt LaFleur to be creative in order to create some more explosive plays on that offense.
I think Aaron Rodgers is right. I think NFL players have egos. They like to, be seen and see their highlights out there and see people talking about them. We haven't spent much time talking about the Packers. They've been flying under the radar, and they do feel like when you look up going in the weekend, they have 10 wins, a chance for 11. It is a little bit surprising to some people. But in the same token, like, how many players can you name that are difference makers on this team that aren't named Aaron Rodgers? Are them? Devontae Adams has had a pretty nice streak. He's getting better as of late. He's really come on strong. On the defensive side of the ball, is there any, like, I don't see a Khalil Mack. I don't see somebody on that defense that's just a wrecker that out there that intimidates you. And you look at the ultimate kind of unbiased perspective of who's a judge of who's worthy. Las Vegas sportsbooks, most of them have about the 7th or 8th best odds to win the Super Bowl. So I think from that perspective, it's probably fair that they haven't got much of the conversation, but I still think they're a threat. But I don't take them more of a threat than the 49ers, than the Saints, than the Seahawks, than some of those other teams that I do. Maybe I'm guilty of not giving them enough credit, like Aaron Rodgers is talking about, but I still need to see a little bit more out of this team and a little bit more of some difference makers start to evolve on this team.
Aaron Rodgers isn't having his typical MVP type season, and the team is 11-3. Aaron Rodgers isn't going out and lighting it up, and they're still right in the thick of it. I mean, doesn't that go towards what Matt LaFleur is doing with this team and what we wanted to see him do with this team, that it's not all about if Aaron Rodgers plays well, the team plays well?
Absolutely. But he has to play better. They have put themselves in this position to get a bye, as you always talk about. They've only had 2 byes ever since Aaron Rodgers has been the starting quarterback. 2014 was the last year they didn't have to play in that first round of the playoffs, which is why I think Aaron Rodgers is so keenly and acutely aware of where they are in the playoff standings right now. But once they get there, they need Rodgers to be vintage Aaron Rodgers and the other things to happen. Because San Francisco showed you they can annihilate this team up front. New Orleans can play whatever type of game you want. And so what I think Rodgers is talking about, since the Kansas City game was the last time Rodgers went over 250 yards passing. Since then, they've played 6 games. Now they're 5-1. He has 8 touchdowns and no picks. And he's averaging fewer than 200 yards passing per game. They need, in order to beat the best teams in football that you guys are talking about, they need all of what's going on right now to continue, and that passing attack to get an injection. They're not going to get more talented receivers. So Rodgers, I think, knows it's on him.
Yeah, they might not get more talented at the receiver position, but I think Matt LaFleur can do his quarterback a solid and include more of what we saw yesterday. Devontae Adams not just playing the Z, but also playing the X and playing the slot, moving him around to give him opportunities to have one-on-ones, because we know what he's capable of doing in those situations. But again, this Packers offense has to get to the point where they can be more consistent in getting explosive plays down the field, because once we get to the playoffs, it's going to be hard to put together 8, 10, 12 play drives. You're going to have some guys that can be game breakers, and Aaron Rodgers being able to get them the football down the field. So I look for this offense to have to improve in that regard, but I have a little more confidence on that side of the ball just because they have one of the most talented quarterbacks that the game has ever seen. I'm more concerned about what's going on the defensive side of the ball, because it doesn't feel like they can stop a nosebleed, especially with that run game. They've got to get that cleaned up if they're going to have any chance. Also, that Packers offense, they've got to be better in situational football, especially on third downs. You got to find a way to be able to sustain drives. So those are just some areas that they got to improve on if they plan on trying to make a run at this thing.
Here's where they are dangerous, is they haven't had to have Aaron Rodgers throw for 300 yards. That's a great spot to be in. And to your point, you know it's in there if he has to do it. Now, if you get in a shootout, it's tough to get in a shootout with the Saints because they have so much firepower, but you know it's in there for Aaron Rodgers, which is why I tend to agree with him, saying maybe we're not giving them quite enough respect as they deserve.
8th time yesterday this season that Aaron Rodgers has only had 1 or few passing touchdowns in a game, so he is going to have to.
Only Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield more starts with 1 touchdown or fewer in a game.
To the Patriots now. They put aside all the drama to beat the Bengals in Cincinnati yesterday behind 2 touchdown passes from Tom Brady. Their defense was back to wreaking havoc, forcing 5 turnovers. And oh yeah, the drama. Well, before the game, Fox's Jake Glazer revealed exclusive footage that he had obtained of the Patriots filming the Bengals. What was your reaction to all of this, Nick?
Well, you got him dead to rights, and you see why Cincinnati was so mad. Cincinnati knew they had him, and they just wanted the world to be able to see. If that video was a wide shot of the field, it's still against the rules, but at least you have some wiggle room as far as deniability. It is exactly what you are prohibited from taping because they don't want you to be able to do this. So in on the coaches, out to the field, back in on the coaches. And listening to this again, this is probably the 7th time I've now heard it. Each time something new pops in my head, and this time it was, So I'm to believe the dude that just happened to be working Bengals security in the press box knew this obscure rule that the dude who was sent to film didn't? Because he knows you can't do this. And I also, when you listen to this, believe that the 18-year veteran with the Patriots, at least according to the statement, he's been with them 18 years.
Yeah, not his first time.
That he knows as well, which is why you hear the videographer say, I'll just delete all my work. That was not, it wasn't Troy Vincent from the NFL who's in the press box and this is some dude who works for the Bengals telling you, you can't do this. And if you think he's wrong, if you don't think you're doing anything wrong, you say, okay, well, I did it. Email somebody. I don't answer to you. You know what I mean? I answer to my bosses. This is what I was sent here to get. To me, unless you're like, oh, no. Like, we've been caught. And the Patriots, in their initial statement, Canty, make a point to say our video crew included independent contractors. This guy who released a statement, who says he's been with the organization for 18 years, thanks to the magic of the internet, you see that as early as 2012, he was doing videos with the cheerleaders. In 2016, Richard Deitch wrote about him directing Belichick's TV show. If anyone should know the rules of the operation, it would be this senior of an employee. I don't see any way around that.
No, there's no way around it, and you're absolutely right. They got caught red-handed. I mean, in a situation like that, if you offer to delete the footage, then clearly you know that you're doing something wrong. You're aware of it. But this is what the Patriots do. They're habitual line steppers. Somewhere Charlie Murphy is shaking his head because here we go again. It's a situation back in 2007. You had Spygate. They got Doc draft picks. They got a fine, and it was the head coach faced discipline again in 2014 with Deflategate. So it's always something with the Patriots, and a lot of people around football will say, well, what's the big deal? They're just stealing signals. I mean, how much can you really get from that? Well, I mean, if they didn't think that they were getting a competitive advantage, then they wouldn't be doing it. I mean, there's always something to it when these teams are going out there and doing something, just like when the Atlanta Falcons were pumping in crowd noise, just like when the Cleveland Browns were on the cell phones from the press box. It happens because these teams think it will help them with winning. So this is another situation with the Patriots, and I think Roger Goodell and the NFL have to step up and make a statement, because clearly the disciplines that they've imposed on this organization in the past haven't deterred them from doing this.
Nope.
They're so busted. They really are. To the point of what their excuse was, this may be the best documentary ever created, because they're doing this on the advanced scout, right? And if you go back, Seth Wickersham wrote a piece in 2015, and it said that the advanced scout's job was to go to opponents' stadiums and to take video specifically of the sidelines and create files based on substitutions, signals, anything they could use to their advantage. So from that standpoint, this documentary might be the best thing ever created. Give us an inside look at what really goes on. You can't buy any of their excuses. And and I get why, if you're not a Patriots fan, you're like, are you kidding me? But to what you said, it is in their DNA. They are constantly. And I don't know if I have that much of a problem with it, because it probably does happen. Other teams probably do it. But the NFL has to crack down and has to do something and send a message that says, you know what? You can't continue this culture of towing that line and crossing one too many times.
Here's the thing on the argument of other teams do it. Because I feel like that's an argument at times, and I'll be careful on mixing metaphors. If someone gets, someone who gets a DUI, if people say, well, a lot of people, they shouldn't, but they drink and drive. But if someone has 3, A, you say they have a problem, and B, you say that probably means you drink and drive 300 times.
You just got caught.
So if other teams are doing it, but we don't know about it, it would mean a lot of these types of violations go on without being caught, that you can get by. What does it mean if you have been caught 3 times? What does it mean that in between Spygate and Deflategate, what were you doing? In between Deflategate and now, what were you doing? If the brazenness of it is, I'm just going to film. And if they ask me, I'm going to use the exact excuse Seth Wickersham says they were told to use, which is I'm doing a team television show. And Canty, I quoted you earlier on this. Who's the quote, if you're either teaching it or you're allowing it?
Oh, that's Bill Parcells.
Okay, that's what I thought. And you use that all the time. Parcells was your coach, but he was also Belichick's mentor, right?
Yep.
If Belichick is not teaching this type of action. He's certainly allowing it within the organization that he has more control of than any other individual non-owner in all of sports, right? Is that fair?
That's fair.
And so I don't know what the workaround, the defense of the Patriots is at this point.
Well, there is no workaround. And to Danny's point, there are other teams that are doing it. I know that for a fact. But, I mean, you're trying to differentiate what level are they doing it at. It's kind of like the Houston Astros and their sign stealing
right.
and them incorporating technology. Yes. Sign stealing has been around since the beginning of baseball. But when you have club employees using the video camera in center field to send signs back to a monitor that's behind the dugout, clearly you've taken it to another level. And it feels like the Patriots have taken cheating to another level in the National Football League. And that's why I say Roger Goodell has to show that the NFL will not tolerate this, because...
How do you think he's going to do that?
Well, he's got to impose discipline, and it's got to be something far more than what's already happened. They've already had a first-round draft pick taken from them. They had the club fined $500,000.
Belichick himself was fined as well.
$250,000 during Spygate. But they've got to do something beyond that right now, because that has shown that that's not enough of a deterrent to keep them from doing it. And in this era of the National Football League, where the officiating has been brought into question and you have the emergence of legalized gambling in various states, I think the NFL has to make sure that they make a statement about the integrity of the game, because all of the issues with the Patriots and their cheating scandals, that directly affects the integrity of the game. So I think that becomes the biggest part of this in terms of why Roger Goodell has to drop the hammer on the Pats.
When you were playing, you played in the NFL a long time. Did you ever play on a team that was paranoid that teams were cheating out or trying to steal stuff from you?
Yes, I did. I did.
So what, like...
But those organizations also did things to try to get a competitive advantage.
Right, because I go back when I was on the Giants, my second year in the league, maybe my rookie year. Dan Reeves was the coach. And we used to practice out there, and the practice field was outside the parking lot.
I know where he's going.
So we'd practice outside in the parking lot of the Meadowlands at the time. And there was a hotel across Route 3, the Sheraton Meadowlands,
yep.
right? And it was like a 12-story hotel. And so we were like in week 4, and it was definitely an NFC East opponent, but I can't remember which opponent it was. And it's a beautiful, gorgeous day outside. We'd always practice outside in the practice field. And all of a sudden, we're going inside. And I'm like, well, why aren't we going outside? It's 70 degrees out. It's sunny. Why aren't we going out there? And everybody's like, oh, Dan's just being paranoid. Dan Reeves being paranoid.
And I'm like, oh, what? Get it from the hotel.
He was convinced that there was somebody that had had reserved a room in the hotel and was shooting our practices from outside. So we went inside. And at the time, I remember thinking, this guy's nuts. Like, who would do this? Now, after hearing all of these different reports surface, I'm like, well, yeah, teams probably were. And that's the type of environment that teams are always looking for an edge and trying to find out that little thing. Games are decided by one or two plays, and if you can find something that makes a difference, they're going to try to do it.
It's just a coincidence that the Patriots seem to be the one that get caught, because there's also a discrepancy, and you went over this earlier, in the statement that the Patriots made right after it happened, where they called this an independent contractor, and then the statement that this videographer himself made, and you wonder if there's another statement that's going to come out that's going to somehow...
Well, the Patriots' original statement, to me, they set off multiple alarm bells. One was that Belichick commented about this immediately. Yeah. To me, it speaks to the fact that he knew this could be an issue, even if he did not orchestrate this specific incident. The Patriots' initial statement saying, we know we broke the rules. They at no point in their initial statement do they say they didn't break the rules, probably because they knew what was on this footage. But then they also say that our video crew, which included independent contractors who shot the video, I think they were hoping that the narrative could be said, listen, this is some part-time guy who's in on the weekend, who doesn't really know what he's doing. And then, independent of the Patriots, the person who's been suspended now for the Patriots team, the guy, David Mondillo, who, according to the internet, is the supervising producer for the New England Revolution, which Robert Kraft owns. Right. He says he's been with the organization for 18 years. We know he used to direct Belichick's TV show. He's been there since predating the first scandal. And him to say that he's the person involved, that ain't no independent contractor.
Not at all.
And that is, again, someone that knows their history and the rules. The average Pats fan, I believe, knows. There's something with filming you're not allowed to do with the other team. I'm not certain. If someone had won a contest and got to do this job for a day, probably the one thing they would know is, I don't know what I'm allowed to shoot, but I don't think it can be the other team. I don't know. The Bengals security knew.
Yep.
And then when he's called, he's like, I'll just erase all of it. Man, I know what that is. You ever been as a kid caught stealing and you tell the person, I'll put it back?
Yeah.
If it's yours, just say, bleep you. I came here with it.
Right.
He offered to go put it back on the shelves. No, you got to go to that office in the basement, wait for the cops to show up, and your parents are going to be real disappointed in you.
All right, gentlemen, we'll play a little in or out. Yesterday, the Cowboys got back on track against the Rams. Zeke led the way with 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. Danny Cannell, we'll start with you. You in or out on the Cowboys being legit Super Bowl contenders?
I'm out, man. This team, I've seen too much. I've seen the whole body of work. I'm not going to give in to the recency bias of maybe their best performance in several years that we saw yesterday. The cream of the crop are the Saints, the 49ers, the Seahawks. I'd even throw the Packers in there, too. They are not at the top level.
I'm out on them being Super Bowl contenders. There have only been 3 teams that have had less than double-digit wins to win the Super Bowl. If the Cowboys win out, they'll be at 9 wins. My Giants in 2011 were one of those teams, but that team had already done it before with Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin, so I am out on the Cowboys. I just don't think that they have the ability to galvanize and go on a run.
And that team, your team, throughout the year showed flashes of brilliance more than just one time. You guys beat the Patriots before a really good Pats team before you guys went on your losing skid that kind of derailed your record. It's clean sweep. I'm out. Come on. I'm very happy that Dallas put it all together for one football game. They might even make the playoffs. I still don't think they will, but obviously they win next week and they're in. But if what they would get if they make the playoffs is the privilege of having San Francisco come to their building and annihilate them in Wild Card Weekend.
All right, we all know how explosive the Chiefs' offense can be, but lately their defense has actually been playing pretty well. Over the last 4 weeks, the Chiefs' D allowing just 11 points per game. Danny Cannell, you win around on the Chiefs' defensive turnaround being sustainable.
I am in on the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are flying under the radar. We know about their offense and what they do. And their offensive production has actually come down a little bit, but it's sort of like we were talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. You know they can score with people, but if you look at some of the teams they're starting to beat and they're starting to hold these offenses more and more, I'm starting to buy into the Chiefs' defensive turnaround.
Well, I don't want to put too much stock in what we saw yesterday because it was a blizzard out there and you're talking about a rookie quarterback on his 3rd start. So I do think the Chiefs have upgraded on the defensive side of the ball. Steve Spagnuolo as their defensive coordinator, Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu. I just don't see it being enough once we get to quality competition in the AFC in the playoff picture.
Well, you're right. You're obviously wrong, Canty. I am in. 3 points last week. They held the Raiders to 3 points through 59 minutes. They held the Patriots to 16, and 7 of those came on a flea flicker.
Tell me the juggernaut on offense between any of those 3 teams.
Well, I'll tell you this much. There's only one juggernaut on offense in the AFC, and that's the Ravens.
I was just going to say that.
Who Kansas City, of course, already beat this year. Last year, everyone loved the 12-4 Chiefs. This year, everyone's out on the 12-4 soon-to-be Chiefs. I'm absolutely in. Defense playing so much better than did at any point last season.
All right, yesterday Eli Manning made perhaps his last career start. It was a memorable one. He threw 2 touchdowns, including a Golden Tate that led to the Giants winning 36-20. Danny, you win or out on Eli Manning being a first ballot Hall of Famer?
I am in on Eli being a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's got the 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. The 50,000 passing yards and 300-plus touchdown passes, every other quarterback that has that metric is already in the Hall of Fame. It's a done deal. Plus, the fact that he played in New York, I don't think it should matter, but it does. I think he's absolutely in.
No, you're absolutely right, Daddy. Playing in New York does make a difference. The greatest quarterback in New York City pro football history, that's Eli Manning. The playoff runs is what separates him. I know it's a pedestrian regular season record. He's right at 500, but being able to go on the road in all of those games in 2007 in the postseason, and then 3 games in 2011. I think that's the difference, and he's got some memorable moments. The throw to David Tyree that set up the go-ahead touchdown in Super Bowl 42, and then the throw to Mario Manningham on that last possession in Super Bowl 46. Those are top Super Bowl moments, and so I think that's what puts him over the top. First ballot Hall of Fame.
Jay, how do you introduce Chris Canty when he first comes on the show?
Super Bowl champ Chris Canty.
Super Bowl champ. Who'd you win that Super Bowl with, Chris Canty?
With Eli Manning.
Eli Manning. Okay, all right. I just wanted to get that. Listen, The case for Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame is a very simple one. The unbelievable counting stats, the 2 Super Bowls, the one thing neither of you mentioned, the Iron Man streak.
Yep.
That is, everything I just said there is first ballot, no doubt. The case against Eli Manning as any type of Hall of Famer is a very easy one as well. 1 playoff games in 2 seasons, a career 500 record. There was never a season, forget him being the best quarterback in football, where he was considered one of the 3 best quarterbacks in football, and his career passer rating numbers are really pedestrian given the era. Because of that, I think it takes him a long time to get in. I think he will eventually get in, but I think that you can make a case as strong against him as you can for him, so I think it's going to be a battle, so I am out.
Ain't a lot of quarterbacks running around with multiple championships.
Right.
Let's just put that out there.
The other
Ain't a lot of
thing,
them.
too.
But one that isn't in.
Here's what hurts him. The last 7 years. If he would have just stopped playing after 8 years, it would have been first ballot no matter, without question. The fact that they've struggled recently, his record comes down.
That's what I said about Tom Brady. If he just stopped 7 years ago, he might be able to make it into the Hall of Fame. Danny, want to play Drawing a Blank?
Let's do it.
Yesterday, Eli Manning made perhaps his last career start. It was a memorable one. He threw 2 touchdowns, led the Giants to a 36-20 win. Mr. Cannell, the best fit for Eli Manning next season is blank.
On a beach somewhere with a little drink with an umbrella in it. Retirement. You can just see it. It feels like it's all the signs are there. You know, last 2 weeks ago, he's in Philly. His brother's there. His wife's there. They're all sending him off. I think that's the best option. And I want him to do that, too. I don't want to see him try to, find a resurgence somewhere and then it goes off the rails and his record falls way below 500. I'd love to see him right off in the sunset as much as he can.
Yeah, I'm going to say the best place for Eli Manning next season is the couch. I mean, he was a bridge quarterback this year. It was a short bridge because it only lasted for 2 games. But when the Giants took Daniel Jones in the top 10, you knew what it was. Eventually, they were going to turn it over to the kid. If there's another team that's interested in Eli Manning, it would only be to be a bridge quarterback. He's already said he's not interested in that. So I think Eli is going to hang him up after this year.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. He's not going to be playing football, but I think he's going to do something we know he loves, which is autograph signings, maybe nationwide. I saw Candy, he got the game ball yesterday, but it's so weird. I looked online. There's 3 of those game balls.
Is it game used?
It's game used. I'm so confused. But that's we all say not playing football. You got him on a beach, you got him on a couch. I got him at a convention center near you.
A little SNL maybe? Have more time to do some comedy skits with his brother?
Low-key funny dude, by the way.
Commercials,
all 3 of them.
perhaps?
Low-key funny dude.
Yeah, true that. All right, yesterday there was plenty of good quarterback play throughout the league. I'm getting there. Carson Wentz led the Eagles to a 37-27 win with his 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. But Danny, the best quarterback performance yesterday was
Carson Wentz was impressive, but I didn't see him setting any records the way Jameis Winston did with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Back-to-back games, over 450 yards passing, first time in NFL history. That has been done. In the first quarter, he was 10 of 12 for 221 and 2 touchdown passes and took off from there. And the best part about it, only 1 interception.
Yeah, I'm going with trick-or-treat Jameis, too. That's what Dick White calls him. I mean, Jameis Winston is one of those players that's just good enough to get the coach fired because it's maddening. There's so much variance in terms of how he plays week to week, but he had a great day yesterday.
Our friend cousin Sal, who does the great show Lock It In, he said the 30 for 30, the Jameis Winston story on this year, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, for a potential first one of that in league history. But while he played really well, I'm going to go with the guy who, in the conditions, against a divisional opponent, kept his team alive for the 2 seed. That's one Patrick Mahomes. 27-34, 340 yards passing, so that's 10 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, made the one mistake trying to fit it into Tyreek Hill at the goal line, but in a game the Chiefs dominated throughout in tough conditions. Mahomes was sensational, reminding people he's still the most talented quarterback.
I was going to call you a homer for that, but it's hard to deny. And remember Russell Westbrook was talking about normalizing greatness? I feel like we're already there in only year 3 with Patrick Mahomes. We just come to expect him to do that in those conditions.
He has 17 300-yard passing games in his first 3 seasons, which is 2 off the record. He didn't even play his rookie season. So he's done that in really just the years 2 and 3.
All right, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers picked up an important win over the Chicago Bears yesterday. Green Bay jumped out to a 21-3 lead, and their defense sealed the win. They're currently the 2 seed in the NFC. But, Danny, the best team in that conference, the NFC, is blank.
I'll give you a little bit of a hot take because I think Saints, 49ers are popular. I'm going with Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
Russell Wilson still performing at an MVP level. If Lamar Jackson was not doing Lamar Jackson things, he'd be in that conversation. Pete Carroll's got championship experience. So does Russell Wilson. Adding Josh Gordon with that catch right there was a massive addition to the wide receiving core, which needed some help. Home field, such one of the toughest places to play. I'm going to go with the Seahawks.
And as we sit here today, they are the 1 seed, amazingly, right now, this moment.
No, I like the Seahawks too, but I like to be right when I make predictions. And coming into the season,
integrity.
I took the Green Bay Packers to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, and I'm still rolling with the Green Bay Packers.
Don't be stubborn.
Even though they haven't put it all together in a complete performance, I still think this is a really good team. Right now, they're the 2 seed in the NFC, so see if they can hold on to that. But the Green Bay Packers, if Aaron Rodgers can do a little bit more and that defense can pick it up, particularly the Smith brothers with the pass rush to be able to close out games, then I like the Packers to be able to come out of the NFC.
I agree with you on all that, and I think they have the highest ceiling, and I also picked the Packers. But right now, the best team in the NFC is the Saints. Right now, as far as the team that's played the best, I know they just lost the last time we saw them, but they also hung 46 on that excellent San Francisco defense. I think the Saints have the most different ways to beat you, and if they can get back to where they are the 1 seed, so difficult to play a playoff game in that building.
Worried about Sheldon Rankins and Marcus Davenport both being put on IR. That's a big blow for that Saints defense.
2 major defensive lineman losses.
Candy, you're my favorite part of the day. Thanks for hanging out today. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.